Welcome back to another live episode by Crypto Code by ICN.live. So much is going on. Every week we're here to let you know about the latest happenings in the markets, and a lot is happening. I mean, guys, the markets are green and Bitcoin is hovering around $110,000. So, are we at the beginning of the final push of this bull run? Well, stick around until the end because we're gonna look at the charts. We're going to look at what the experts are even saying, and we're going to understand a little bit more about the fundamentals that are happening right now in the industry. On top of that, we are now officially entering Q3 of 2025. I remember in the beginning when we first started doing the videos around, the beginning of January or Q1, we always said that the peak or the highest point of Bitcoin, the highest point of Bitcoin will hit by November, December is like the idea, October, November. My prediction still stands at $150,000. But as we enter now Q3 of 2025, the Middle East is a little calmer between Israel and Iran. So that's always great. We still have a few wars around the world, but hopefully those will be settled soon. And as my friend says, it's just a pause. Well, hopefully it'll be a very long pause because this really helps the markets out. And we're starting to see that. But I know what you're thinking. Will we see a shift into altcoins finally, or will this still be a dominated Bitcoin market? Well, let's get into it. What could happen next? What are the experts all saying? We'll go over it all. We'll go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll talk about what's happening in the market, some exciting developments happening in the industry. Stick until the end because you cannot afford to miss this. Let's get straight into it. Please, before we start, let's smash that like and subscribe button. It really helps the algorithm if you do it early in the video. It really encourages us to keep making these videos for you. We want to give you as much value as possible. So please just do that for us. It means a lot to us. So thank you. Oh yeah, and none of this is financial advice. We're just here to share the news, let you know. Please do your own research, but we'll show you the tools that you can find online to make sure that you're always up to date with the latest that's happening. And with all that said, let's get straight into it. We usually start the same way every time, and we go straight into the crypto bubble. So I'll just refresh it quickly. And guys, it is green all the way through as this refreshes. I mean, this is so beautiful. Look at all this green beauty. Just in the past day, we've seen everything from meme coins to metaverse to layer ones, everything just doing really well. I think there's a lot of fundamentals happening in the market that we'll talk about. But there's also some risks that we need to keep an eye on, and we'll also bring those up as well. But what is happening? Why are we finally seeing this? I think the markets are reacting and starting to price in, security, some peace. Trump is really trying to put a ceasefire as well on all the wars in the Middle East. So I'm hoping that's finally the case. But if you look at the past week, Pengu is up 63%, Sui 14.8%, XRP, Fartcoin. I mean, everything is just green and it's absolutely beautiful. Bitcoin is at $110,000, but there's so much to talk about on what could potentially happen next. So let's get straight into it. Before we start, I have to show you this amazing platform that we've built from the ground up. It's called ICN.live. It truly is a great tool to have to stay up to date with the latest news happening specifically in the digital asset space. We also include AI, we include gaming. And if you sign up to the Telegram today, you'll get all of these notifications straight to you. So you're always up to date with the latest news. The UI is amazing. The flow, the information is all up to date and fantastic. So please do check it out. We also do these amazing key opinion pieces with leaders in the industry. And you should go check out ICN Web3 Media across all our socials. Go check out the other channel that we have where we do ICN.talks. We'll do podcasts with heavyweights in the industry where you can learn about some of the coolest things happening in the region, but also internationally. So go check that out. What I love to do, and we'll go through this now, is look at what's happening with Bitcoin. So I'll just refresh this just to make sure we have the latest. You can check and track all the latest prices directly on ICN.live. It's a fantastic tool. The team has worked really hard on this just to make it, very easy to look at. So greed is at 73. And if you've been watching the channel, you know how I always feel about that. And I'm actually starting to feel it as well. I feel like everyone is talking about Bitcoin. The markets, the price of Bitcoin is so high, but there are still some fundamental challenges that we need to discuss, and we'll bring them up. But the markets are hot. Everything is going up, and we're almost at we're hitting all-time highs across. So if we look at Bitcoin, it was, let's say, it hit $110,000. It has retracted a little bit since hitting that, But let's just look at the timeline here. So in April of this year, obviously we went down to $77,000, which was crazy. I mean, we after hitting peaks of $110,000, we thought we're probably going to go up and up from there. But obviously we retracted. A lot of things happened in the macroeconomics. We talked about this on the channel as well. The tariffs were the biggest one. We didn't know what was going to happen. Everyone was scared that their iPhone was going to cost like $3,500. It feels like a lifetime ago now, all this tariff talks, right? But what's great with Trump is that we all had to become experts in new things. I had to become like an economics expert, learning about, why has the US lost its edge over the past 20 years? How did China become much stronger over the past 20 years? A lot has happened in the global, landscape of things. And in the past 25 years, the US obviously has printed a lot of money. They're into debt. They've spent way more than they've made. While China, on the other hand, started, EV race, building amazing products and building amazing brands that they're exporting, especially in the car industry. So a lot of things have happened over the past 25 years. What has really blown everyone's mind is obviously Bitcoin and the trajectory and the growth that we've seen just with Bitcoin. And this cycle feels very different than the last cycles that I've personally seen, and I think everyone in the industry is noticing this. It is definitely a Bitcoin cycle. The alts have, yes, we saw some green on what we just showed in the bubbles, but it hasn't really like gone from Bitcoin to Ethereum to altcoins as we've seen before. It has been a very predominantly Bitcoin market, and so we've seen it go from April from $75,000 all the way up to $111,000 in May. That was a quick run up. But then it traded sideways. The news of the war wasn't helping. Obviously, it came back up once we realized that Trump was probably using negotiation tactics to kind of bring tariffs to a level that, seem reasonable now, because in the beginning he was talking about like 200% and 300%. Wow, it feels like a lifetime ago. But yeah, so we saw that, quick rise up until May, trading sideways. We almost went through World War III last couple of weeks. Now that seems to have cleared, and we've gone from 22nd of June of $100,000, where we're just teetering around there, all the way up now to $110,000. And the sentiment across my peers and across people that I'm talking to is that this is the beginning of the last stretch of the bull run. And what that means is potentially from now until October, November, we might see this bull run hit $150,000, $180,000. And we'll talk about some of the predictions that a lot of these folks are making. So given that it is a Bitcoin-dominated market, cycle, we have to look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, and just to see, this usually gives us a great indicator on if the altcoins, what's going to happen next, or are we going to see a continued rise in Bitcoin prices and Bitcoin dominance? And this really gives us a great indication. So let me just refresh this just to make sure we're on the latest stats. This is a great tool, a great website, TradingView, market cap, and you can check the Bitcoin dominance. And what this means is, out of the entire crypto industry, how much does Bitcoin dominate? And it's 65%, which is it's massive. It's very, very strong. This just means that Bitcoin has now shifted. Obviously, it's way more decentralized than anything else. It's just doing so well. It's hedging against inflation. It's hedging against all types of fiat currencies, which are the government's essentially printing, and it's becoming super strong. So over the past 6 months, we've seen a 14% increase in this. It's just green all the way through. Again, it's just proving that Bitcoin is it's Bitcoin season again, and it's trending up higher. And usually when that happens, we tend to see the price of Bitcoin go up. And I want to talk about this. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Are the value of assets going up, or is the value of currency going down, or is it both together? I think it's both together. I think the value of currencies are definitely going down, and we talked about this in the last video, how the value of the dollar has gone down 10% in the last just like 2 months alone. So moving on, what happened this time around where Bitcoin has become front and center? Dominance is up much higher than previous cycles for sure, but also it's become literally a household name. I think everyone's grandma and grandfather knows about Bitcoin now, and everyone's getting into it. Even my kids know about Bitcoin. And why is that, and what has happened significant? Like, what was the biggest change that happened this cycle versus the ones before? And obviously it's regulations. Obviously it's the United States coming in and playing strong. Obviously it's the Trump administration and everything that they're doing around this as well, and the SEC and all that. But There are two major buyers and investors this time around that we did not see in previous cycles, and it's the ETFs and it's the corporate, companies that are buying Bitcoin and adding it to their balance sheet. So those are the two major changes from last cycles. I mean, the previous cycle, we only had MicroStrategy. We only had Michael Saylor doing this. It was maybe one or two at the time, but now I have the stats for you, so we're going to go over it. The numbers are absolutely insane. So let's just let's go through it. I wanted to highlight how this has really changed over the past cycles. So this bar chart is an X account that you should definitely be following and checking out. So the publicly traded companies have purchased more Bitcoin than ETFs for the third consecutive quarter. So net Bitcoin flows for public companies and ETFs, you can see that now it's outpacing the ETFs, but the ETFs have been buying up a lot of Bitcoin. And what's fascinating about this strategy is these guys are holding. They're not going to sell. They're not trading. They're not day trading. They're holding. And this is Bitcoin that is off the market for a long time. So that's why this is super important. And I wanted to highlight it to you guys. On top of that, I saw this tweet from Mario Naufel, is that BlackRock just bagged 696,874 Bitcoins. The ETF, which is the IBIT, iShares Bitcoin Trust, dropped on January 5th of 2024 and apparently decided to eat the entire crypto market for breakfast. BlackRock now holds 696,874 Bitcoin, and they are not selling it. So that's why he's saying here, you can't have any. It's sitting on a pile worth $74 billion, making it the biggest Bitcoin hoarder on earth. And I want to talk about this next. It's fascinating, the business of the ETFs, because I'll show you just how much BlackRock is benefiting from all of this. So here you can see Larry Fink, BlackRock CEO, talking about how he's a big believer in Bitcoin, how he's become essentially the vehicle for sovereign wealth funds, for endowments, for like over-the-counter kind of investment funds to purchase Bitcoin, as they can do it through ETFs now, pension funds and the like. So this is fascinating, and it's just not stopping. They keep buying up more. So BlackRock is now making $187 million annually on Bitcoin ETFs. That's just from the fees and buying in and out for their clients. So it's an insane cash cow for them just by holding all of this Bitcoin and giving access to institutional investors to buy, and retail investors if they want to get in without having to, purchase Bitcoin directly. So this is very important because this is very different from the last cycle. So when we're going to get into a bear market eventually, guys. Like, this bull run is not going to last forever. Don't ever think it's going to last forever. You have to always be prepared. Take out your principal and make sure that you're always controlling and minimizing your managing your risk. So this is now, I strongly believe, and obviously there's not financial advice, but from everything that I'm reading online, and I read a lot, and a lot of videos that I watch as well, this feels like it's the beginning of that final stretch, the last 50 meters of the run, where we're going to see potentially a huge move upwards of the Bitcoin price towards that new all-time high that I believe is going to be 150K. But obviously, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. But it's just fascinating to watch this in the news. Last cycle, you would never have guessed that these big institutions would be buying up this much Bitcoin. So you have BlackRock, you have the ETFs just buying so much of these, creating such a huge amount of Bitcoin for their ETFs because there's so much demand for it. BlackRock Bitcoin ETF drives more revenue than its S&P 500 fund. People want in, and they want in a safer way, and they're doing it through these ETFs, and there's just so much demand for it. And for everyone who got into Bitcoin early on, this Bitcoin, like we said, is not going to be sold anytime soon. These are not day traders. These are holding it for the long time. These are the real diamond hands because they understand that this asset is most likely going to appreciate while fiat and other currencies are going to depreciate. And we'll talk about exactly that as well. So global Bitcoin ETF update for June. So the ETFs as a whole have added over 42,000 Bitcoins in June. ETFs hodl a record 1.43 million Bitcoin worth $150 billion. That's across all ETFs. And we said BlackRock has around $74 billion, which is about almost 50%. And USA dominates with 88.5% share. So all this information is out there. They don't seem to be slowing down on their purchases, and they don't seem to be selling any of their Bitcoin, which is fascinating. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of the miners in the early days that were creating these. They would mint all of these Bitcoins, and then they would be like, depending on the price of the Bitcoin, if they had to make up for the cost that they had for their electricity, they would sell it. But then now it's like a whole new dynamic. You have the miners, you have the ETFs, you have all this institutional investment just pouring in. And that's not enough. I mean, this cycle is not just the ETFs. It's more than that, and we'll talk about it here. So public companies, this is Michael Saylor, official account. Public companies acquired about 131,000 Bitcoins in the second quarter of this year alone, growing their Bitcoin balance 18%, according to data provider Bitcoin Treasuries. ETFs showed an 8% increase, or about 111,000 BTC in the same period. So this is a fantastic statistic on the difference between the two. Now you have two massive treasuries, massive buyers of Bitcoin. On one side, it's the ETFs and the BlackRocks and the like, and the other side, it's the corporates like Saylor, or like these new funds that are being set up just to buy Bitcoins. Who else is there? GameStop bought Bitcoin. We talked about this a lot on the show before. But so these two massive investor pools are now sucking up a lot of Bitcoin, by the way, and taking a lot of that supply, which is absolutely fascinating. This is very different than what we've seen before, and that's why I strongly believe this is a very, it's a Bitcoin season, and there's the potential here is just honestly incredible. So what does that mean for our second in command, Ethereum? Let me just refresh this as well to make sure we have the latest information. Ethereum used to be my love, but not this cycle. It's insane. I mean, Ethereum for the longest time was the number one smart contract, layer one. It was, where all the innovation was at. But over the past 6 months, we've just seen its dominance dwindle. It is now at 9.34%. If we look at the peak, all-time high, what was its all-time high? It was 19% at its all-time high. It's about 21% at its all-time high. 24% when it first launched. So yeah, fascinating how it's just slowly not doing anything this cycle, but we'll get into a lot of that. So I love this meme. I love to show you guys some of the memes that I find. So when ETH hit $7,000 in 2079, so we're just waiting here, trying to see what's going to happen next. All right, next thing that I wanted to talk about, very important, is the USDT dominance. Now, I know USDT is not the only stablecoin out there, but it still does command a 65% market share or somewhere around that. So looking at this can give us a very good insight on what's happening. And what we tend to see, let's just look at like the 1 month, for example, or the 6 months. What we tend to see is as the dominance trends downwards, it means people are getting out of USDT and they're buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other alts as well. So we tend to see a correlation with dominance going down and other asset prices in the crypto industry going up. And so what we've seen now in the past week is that this is trending a little bit downwards, but not so much. But if you look at here on the 2nd of July, it was 4.93%. Now it's 4.76%. So it is trending downwards, definitely. And a lot of the folks that I've been speaking with are saying this is a sign that it might be like we said, it's the time. Bitcoin's hitting 110,000. Potentially we could see the ride up to 150K happening very soon. So there's a lot of euphoria in the market right now. Everyone's really excited that on a macro level, everything looks great, but I'm a little bit concerned. I think we might hit that all-time high, but I think it's going to be very short-lived, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. I'll tell you a little bit about why I think that. Again, not financial advice, just my personal take on everything that's happening and the experiences that I've seen in the market. But before we continue, guys, I am so excited to announce this ICN.live. It's a new thing that we've been working on, and we are very excited to announce it today. We launched a new media product. It's called ICN.live. It's a media launchpad built for digital creators, specifically in the UAE. If you have a digital program or a course and you want to really take it to the next level, reach out to us today. We'll help you with the production. We'll help you with the distribution. We'll help you with everything that you need to help you scale. Again, if you're in the UAE, check this out, CLIQ.ICN.live, and we are the guy. Like, the team is just awesome. They'll sit down with you. They'll do a free workshop with you, learn more about what your plans are, what you want to do, and then help take you to the next level. So you can just click here, and then you get taken to the application. You share your name, your email. Again, you have to be based in the UAE because the team is here, and they'll really help you, on site. They'll meet with you, figure out what your goals are, what your strategies are, and then and really help you take it to the next level. So make sure you check it out, guys. Again, the website is CLIQ.ICN.live. Check it out today. A new product, and we're very excited about it. Moving on, let's get to the state of the Middle East. Like we discussed, Elon Musk decided to tweet. Obviously, the bromance between Elon Musk and Donald Trump has been short-lived as well. We've seen them go from best buds to nemesis, I guess. But now they're I guess Elon Musk is trying to give out an olive branch, so to say. So he says, credit where credit is due. Donald Trump has successfully resolved several serious conflicts around the world. And this one is actually talking about the Gaza situation. So my representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize the 60-day ceasefire. That sucks. I wish it was a forever ceasefire. So yeah, again, he's putting it as, I guess, front of the agenda, and the more peace we have, the better it is for everyone. So this is hopefully great news, and hopefully it's the time for a whole new peaceful Middle East, let's say. All right, moving on, I want to talk about some interesting news that's happening, and this is Robinhood announces new chain. I was a little bit surprised by this, but they did announce so let's refresh this again, just to make sure. They did announce that they're going to launch a new L2, which is a little bit surprising, and they did announce that it's going to be on Arbitrum. Okay, great, interesting choice there. But this is from Vlad Tenev, who is the CEO and co-founder of Robinhood app. He says the first Ethereum layer 2 optimized specifically for RWAs, for real-world assets, from public to private to global. He did a whole keynote about this. You shouldn't have to rely on brokers to trade assets. Instead, you should be able to seamlessly trade real-world assets in seconds. We're working with regulators to make this a reality. More is coming soon. So what's really interesting about this is they're going to tokenize essentially the NASDAQ and public markets. And when when Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these started, became in the market, we could trade this 24/7, Saturday, Sunday, any time of the day. It's on 24/7, whereas the stock market is not. So it's interesting to see if this will actually change that. I'm not really sure, but the potential here is to basically to tokenize all of these assets and do one-to-one, so that they could, there's always going to be a market for it, liquidity, depending on obviously the company and the stock. But this is a move towards that, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do this, and if this layer 2 chain is probably not going to be so decentralized. I think they have to have some control for KYC and AML. But again, this is news that's happened this week. Thought I'd share it with you because this is a intersection between TradFi and DeFi, and Robinhood creating their own layer 2 is fascinating. Again, we've seen in the last cycle how layer 2s were dominating the scene, and this cycle not at all. I mean, Polygon and the likes, I mean, Sui, and basically this cycle we've seen new layer 1s that are competing directly with Ethereum, rather than the layer 2s that we're trying to solve for Ethereum's issues, if that makes any sense. Moving on, I love these bar charts. I want to go through them with you because there's a lot going on, and I think, yes, Bitcoin is doing well, the markets are green, but what's happening under the hood? Have we done a maintenance check on the industry, on the economy? Sorry, have we done a thorough check? Okay, yes, there's peace, a little bit more peace in the Middle East that's happening. Hopefully the war in Russia will end as well. But under the hood, macroeconomics, yes, the tariffs have been solved, but is there anything that we need to be worried about? And I love that this is coming up, and I think we need to talk about it today, because if left unchecked, this could be a huge issue, and the signs are starting to bubble up that this could be a bubble. And so we need to address this. And I'm going to show you two sides of everything. I'm going to show you why Bitcoin price it might continue increasing. But again, what's going to happen in retail liquidity? Are people going to have less money to spend on this? Does that even matter? what's going to happen. We have to be aware of all of this stuff. So the first one I wanted to talk about was U.S. housing market has reached its most unaffordable level in history. So U.S. home price history from 1890 to 2025, they've been marking all this. Here you can see in 2006 was the last bubble. It went down and it is now at its peak, the highest ever. And this could be, again, the fact that the US dollar's value has gone down. So asset prices, and I saw someone talk about this, it's like a house is a house, right? So it's the same cost to build a house, but if the value of the US dollar that you bought it, so if your grandparents bought that house for $40,000, it felt like, or it had the same value or purchasing power at that time as $400,000 today, as an example, right? So inflation is real. The money printers are on. And we're seeing this across now with housing prices and everything. The only problem is like how much are the people going to struggle? What's going to happen? Because obviously the purchasing power of a family today is much less than it was back in the day. And I can't see this getting easier for people in the near future. So I feel like the disparity between the ultra rich and the poor is getting bigger, and the middle class is getting squeezed out. So this is something that's, obviously all the signs are there. How are we going to fix it is the issue. So again, looking under the hood, seeing what's happening. And it's not just that. What we're seeing is, so on one side, you're seeing the side of like housing prices, everything's getting more expensive, inflation, quality of life is it's just very expensive to live these days as compared to like our parents or our grandparents, especially with like having kids nowadays with tuitions and schooling, and all of this is getting more expensive. And this will all impact the markets eventually. But what we're seeing is the opposite. What we're seeing now is that this chart, more than 71% of S&P 500 stocks are now trading above their 100-day moving average. So does this mean that the revenue of all these companies are much higher than they were before? Or does this mean that the multiples on the profits and the multiples on the revenue are just higher, which means they're overvalued? I think it's the latter. I think what we're seeing now is a little bit of a hype towards trying to make as much money as you can in investments, but that's always a thin line, right? And so here, just going down to the comments. So just imagine what happens when we cut rates, which is something we have to talk about, because the next FOMC is going to be end of July, and we're going to make sure that we cover that as well. So please do subscribe. Ping the notification bell, because you have to stay up to date. Every week we drop all of this value for free. The team and I do all this research just for you, just to understand what's happening in the market. So you have a different perspective from this channel. Other channels have different perspectives. At the end of the day, I really want to dig deep into what's under the hood. What's happening? Has there been an oil change? Has there been a maintenance check on the economy globally as well, and not just the US? So this is something that we have to understand and make sure that we have the right tools and information. Again, the odds of an interest rate cut happening this month have jumped above 25%. Now, how much of an interest rate cut could it be? 25 bips, 50 bips, we don't know. But if that does happen, it does become cheaper to borrow. And human nature is people start to leverage more and buy more stocks and buy more assets and all that. So it's definitely going to have a positive impact on the markets. However, I think from what I've understood is, had there not been this tariff fiasco, had there not been an increase in tariffs across the United States from, for all the countries that they work with or import from, the likelihood of a interest rate cut could have been higher. So that's what I'm trying to hear. I've been hearing Powell say that publicly as well. Like if there was no tariff war, or all of these new tariffs that are making life more expensive for the average American because now import costs are higher, then the likelihood of reducing the interest rate would have been higher. But again, these are odds. Polymarket and all of these like apps that check and kind of like give you an understanding on the odds of what's going to happen in the market are valid, and people usually see these, and usually most of the times they're correct. Except for the new mayor that happened in New York, they were not correct. Anyway, so going back to the fundamentals, the U.S. dollar index, we talked about this last week. The value of the dollar has gone down substantially over the past month and a half, and there's a correlation here, obviously, with that as well. So we're seeing a downward trend on the U.S. dollar, which means which tends to mean that assets prices go up because the value of the dollar is going down. And so, here a dead cross on DXY, massive altcoin season ahead, because in previous times, this is what we tended to see. And here the market loves a good narrative, but let's not forget that history does not always repeat itself perfectly. A death cross on the DXY could signal panic, but remember, it's about context. Are we in a tightening cycle? We are. We're not in a quantitative easing. We're not. The Fed hasn't reduced interest rates yet. They're not printing more money yet, but it's something to keep an eye on. And again, if the dollar value goes down, that usually tends to mean that the asset prices go up. So that's another chart I wanted to show you. Again, what's happening not just in crypto but also across the stock markets is more than half of the world's stock made new 52-week highs last week alone, the best performance in more than a decade. I guess this is what Trump always wanted. He wants to be the best president, the best economy, number one for everything, and he's going to do everything in his power to make it happen under his watch. What happens afterwards, which we don't know. Who's going to be the next president of the United States? Again, these guys come in for like 2 years and they have to go campaign again, and then we're stuck trying to figure out how to run our businesses and run our lives based on the executive orders and decisions that they make. So that's why we always have to stay up to date. Again, follow this channel, because every week we drop all of this information for you, so you have an understanding. You can talk to your friends and know what's going on in the markets. Not just, wow, yeah, Bitcoin's $110,000, it's going to hit $180,000, but to also know everything that's happening in the ecosystem and understand what's happening in the U.S. economy, because things are not all amazing. And we'll talk about that as well. So I want to show you, obviously, not just the highs, but also the risks involved. So this is what everyone is talking about today. It's the US M2 money supply hit an all-time new high. So the US M2 money supply, which includes cash, checking accounts, and savings, hit a record high of $21.9 trillion in May. This measures money available for spending or investing. A high M2 can signal risks like inflation or asset bubbles, as more money drives up prices. However, studies show it doesn't always cause inflation. Other factors like economic demand or money circulation speed matter. Recent data suggests inflation is moderating despite the M2 peak, likely due to Federal Reserve actions in recovering supply chains. It's a complex issue, so while high M2 is notable, its impact depends on broader economic conditions. This is like the highest it's ever been, and when this tends to happen, you usually see asset prices go really high as well. So this is this is why everyone's excited, and they think that Bitcoin, if this continues to rally upwards, and this is not even with the interest rate cuts, and this is not with printing more money. This is just what's happening right now. So what we see is, it's a sign that. Here, if you looked at 2008, you saw M2 money supply start to increase, and then you saw it again in the pandemic. And usually, when the printers are on and when there's a lot of money supply, you get to see you see Bitcoin and you see other asset prices start to increase as well. So this is what everyone's talking about today. It jumped 4.5% year on year in May to a record $21.94 trillion. This marks the 19th consecutive monthly increase. It has now surpassed the previous all-time high posted in March of 2022. Furthermore, inflation-adjusted M2 money supply rose 2.1% year on year last month, the largest increase since early 2022. Since 2020, the US M2 money supply has risen nearly $7 trillion or 45%. The US dollar's purchasing power is an eternal bear market, and this is exactly what Saylor talks about. This is exactly what all Bitcoin maxis talk about, is that the US dollar's value is going down, and it doesn't look like it's going to be going up anytime soon. And while that happens, it could make sense to hedge your bets on assets like Bitcoin that have a fixed supply, no one can print it, and so on. So this is all great signs. So what does this mean, and what can we expect for Bitcoin prices? Now, I wanted to just highlight some of the predictions that are happening across the industry from experts, from others, and looking at charts. I don't tend to look at these. I mean, I don't tend to do chart readings, but I do follow some of the folks that do that. And so here we're starting to get some, some predictions based on charts. And it looks like if things keep moving the way that it's doing, some are predicting $137,000 as the next target, which in my opinion actually sounds doable. I think we'll hit probably $137,000, or probably like, my guess would be like we'll hit $130,000 while we trade sideways for a while before we hit that peak of like 150K by the end of this year. And then I expect as soon as that happens, my personal opinion, not financial advice, is that that price is going to go back down to like 105 so fast, just because that's how it usually works. Everyone gets so excited, but the smart money know what to do, and they end up selling at the peak, just to make sure that they take some profits for this cycle especially. So that's my personal opinion, but we'll see how this all plays out. And again, you have to stay on the channel every week. We're going to see how this goes. Others expect this to go to $200,000 in the coming months. Again, listen, possible, could happen. And if it does, again, I think once it does hit that 200K mark, once it hits that, the top, it's going to come back down very fast, just because people are going to be taking profits. But this is, yeah, it's amazing to see all of these price predictions from $137 to $200,000. It's exciting. And this crypto beast that I also follow here, so his expectations are for this final stretch of this cycle is that we see Bitcoin do another 1.3x from here, which would then get it to $130,000, I guess. ETH could do a 2x, which is reasonable, I guess. It hasn't really done anything in the past 5 to 6 months. XRP 3x, Solana 4x, Sui 5x, Ondo 5x, Pepe, Fartcoin 12x. That one I don't see. And yeah, so there's still meme coins there, but again, if Bitcoin does break out into the 120K, I do assume that the altcoins will definitely get some of that as well, because I think some people who want to take profits out of Bitcoin and want to find a bigger return than Bitcoin would probably then put it into a coin put it into a layer one like Sui or others to catch even more upside. So you would still have like a portion of your portfolio in Bitcoin, but then try to leverage a smaller amount towards the higher risk assets that can generate much more. So again, I do feel like we're in the next run for the next 2 months, I would say. I think 110K will hit it, and then it'll probably trade sideways or probably just bounce quickly up to 118. Again, that's just my personal opinion, just because of what I'm seeing in the macro markets. But that's something that I'm starting to hear and hear. So if you give up now, just know that you'll regret it for the rest of your life. We're about to enter the most parabolic phase of the bull run. And he's kind of like he's put the charts on top of the the psychology of market cycle, the Wall Street cheat sheet, which is quite famous, just showing you here when you thought the world was going to end, it's going back up, and moving, and what's going to happen next. So again, is this going to happen? Hard to tell. I think I still stand by my predictions of 150K to 160K, into the 150K by the end of the year. And I think people are now starting to think that this is the beginning of that last push of the bull run, and there will be a bear market coming up, guys. It's going to happen. Don't think this is going to go up forever. We've seen this before, and it's never going to end. Okay, now I want to shift to a little bit of what's the risks that not just me, but I've been looking at the other side of the internet, especially Ray Dalio, who's been very outspoken. He's a very famous investor, and he's been talking about the end of the empire, which essentially means the United States has become too big, managing all of these military bases around the world is just not economically sustainable anymore. They have 700 bases around the world, and we've seen that now in the last conflict with Iran, is that they had a base in Qatar, they have a base in the UAE, they have a base in Saudi, they have a base in so many European countries, they have a base in Asia, 700 of these bases all around the world. And the cost to maintain their defense, or the budget that they have for the defense, is $1 trillion. Obviously, they have also Medicaid and Medicaid and all of these different social security and all that. But it's become to a point where we've discussed this also, is that the United States brings in $5 trillion, but they spend $7 trillion. So there's $2 trillion deficit. And Trump just passed the big, beautiful bill, which is, which also essentially adds to this deficit as well. So you open up the hood, you start to see some cracks in the engine. You start to see that, hey, the oil hasn't been changed in a while. The air filter, the AC filter hasn't been changed in a while. No one's really taking care of this engine as they should be. And as you start to go down that rabbit hole, and I think you're starting to see also the fracture in the Republican Party between Tucker Carlson, for example, and Candace Owens, and those people who are saying, hey, we need to focus internally now. Our foreign policy has really drained our resources. We've been spending so much money abroad on things that are not really protecting the United States. At the end of the day, internally, you have homeless people, you have a lot of poverty happening in the U.S., and you have a huge deficit that they're spending $1 trillion every year just on interest payments. So yes, $110,000 Bitcoin looks great. Yes, altcoins, fartcoin, 60% over the past week. Yes, all fantastic, but you need to be smart with your risk assessments. You need to be smart with your money and realize that the engine is not running as smoothly as we all would love it to be. So let's go back to what Ray Dalio was saying. After spending time in Washington, D.C., discussing the budget deficit with senior people on both sides of the aisle, it's clear to me that we are unlikely to change the debt trajectory we're on and avoid the painful consequences. There's more to this as well. There's a debt ceiling that the United States keeps increasing. And there are so many people talking about this, and Ray Dalio is one of them. It's just not sustainable. While virtually everyone agrees on the need to address our debt problem in a balanced way that includes tax increases and cuts to benefits, they also agree that they cannot speak up because politics have become absolutist. What this means, and I think we've seen this also with the past, what happened with Iran and the wars that we're seeing in Israel, is this deep state, is this the Congress and what they're spending on, and the military complex, and all of these guys that just want to keep spending money on things that don't really protect, and it's just things that we don't need. Honestly, I'll say it. We don't need this stuff, and it's putting the largest economy in the world at risk. Over the past 20 years, they've created this $37 trillion debt. They pay every year $1 trillion in interest payments. That's why Trump wants the interest rates to come down, because you lower the rates, you lower the payment, what you have to pay back. But they just can't. They're addicted to purchasing. They're addicted to spending. They're addicted to spending on things that are not really, in my opinion, necessary. So everyone's talking about this, and this is why everyone's a little bit worried, and this is why we probably see the value of the dollar keep decreasing, is because they start printing money to pay off their debts that cannot continue going. So here's another one. The U.S. is broke. The real debt is 175 trillion plus, and Elon Musk is 100% correct on the numbers. And this is what the fraction that we saw between Elon Musk and Trump was, exactly this. It was the fact that this big, beautiful bill undermined everything that Doge was trying to do. It actually increased the spending. That yes, they tried to figure out some ways to bring in more revenue, but at the end of the day, that the deficit was still bigger. And so that was the rift, I think, the initial rift that happened between them. But the difficult step is the logical conclusion. There is no fix. It's a write-off, a national bankruptcy, and the default will be in the form of money printing. So there's no way to get out of it. They are going to have to print more money, which means the value of the dollar does decrease, which means the value of Bitcoin is going to increase, because naturally people are going to hedge their investments and hedge their risks against the dollar by buying something like Bitcoin. It's the only asset that doesn't depreciate. It's the only asset that is not inflationary. It is the only asset that they're not going to print more. You can't print more of it. Everything else in the world you can print more. If you look at the real estate market here in the UAE or in Dubai, there is still a lot of land to build. It's, we're not in Manhattan. We're not in London, where there's just no more space to build. Okay, those places you get it because supply is limited. But almost every asset in the world is inflationary. You can make more of it. And the US dollar is printed all the time. You hold $100,000 in your bank account today. It's going to be worth less in 5 years. That's just how it is. That's how it is how it was with our parents, and how it was with our grandparents. Having money in the bank, having cash in the bank is useless. It's a liability. So that's why we are Bitcoin maxis, and that's why we believe Bitcoin is going to go to $1 million, because the value of the dollar is going down. It just is, and it's not going to stop. And because of things like this, where the U.S. national debt is just spiraling out of control, and Trump had a chance right now to do something about it. But as Ray Dalio said, he's spending time with the folks in Washington, D.C. They're not fixing it. They're not going to fix it. They have no intention to fix it right now because the political class, the ones who actually run the world, they have their own incentives to maintain the status quo. So this is something that we have to look at. Again, this is great, in my personal opinion, for Bitcoin. It's great for gold because the value of assets will increase in comparison to fiat. But it's going to be a very tough time for regular folks, for the middle class. The disparity between the rich and the poor is going to get bigger. So that's my concern. And then you add AI into this, and then it's just like a lot of jobs have to shuffle. So yeah, things are going to be tough. Things are going to be challenging for the next 10 to 15 years, and we have to be prepared for it. Anthony Pompliano, he's fantastic. He also set up a company now that's buying a lot of Bitcoin because he gets it. People understand this, and you need to understand this too. The US dollar is getting destroyed this year. Asset prices are never going to stop going up. If you look at countries like Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Turkey, Lebanon, all of these countries had their currencies just go through the roof. Yes, the United States is an empire. Yes, the United States is the #1 economy in the world. But what if, just what if it spirals out of control because they just put themselves in such a huge debt that they can't get out of? What if governments and institutions move away from investing into US bonds and find other alternatives that make more sense? What if? What happens? Well, what happens is you'll have hyperinflation. And if the US dollar goes through that, I'm not saying it's going to happen today. I'm not going to say it's happening tomorrow. But in the direction that we're going in, hyperinflation on the US dollar might not be that far away. And if that's the case, having investments in Bitcoin and having investments in assets that hold value and can generate value is where the future is going to be, and we have to all be aware of that. And I think that's why we're seeing also stablecoins becoming #1 in this cycles, because the United States wants more customers of their bonds and to issue more debt that they can use then to pay off their existing debt and to take care of their country and make sure that their war machine is still working and the empire is still functioning. But you can only do it for so long. And we are at that stress test right now, 125% debt to GDP ratio. As soon as that hits 175% or 200%, I'm telling you, it is the end. The end will be very near. Hyperinflation in the United States is just around the corner. And that's when the value of cash in your bank account is going to be worth much less. So yeah, we opened up the hood. We're taking a look. We're seeing cracks. We're seeing oil leaks. And what's worse is that we're not seeing anyone take this car for maintenance. We're not seeing anyone take it in. No one wants the signs are there. Ray Dalio is telling you. Anthony Pompliano is telling you. Jeffrey Sachs. Everyone is talking about this. There's a lot of folks, smart folks, talking about this. But if the status quo and the people in charge don't want to do anything about it, it's just a matter of time. And so Ray Dalio is right here. When countries have too much debt, lowering interest rates and devaluing the currency that the debt is denominated in is the preferred path government policymakers are most likely to take. So it pays to bet on it happening. What they're saying is, because the current interest rates are 4.2, let's say 4.5% today, the interest on the debt that the United States has to pay every year is around $1 trillion. If they lower that interest rate to 4%, but they do it artificially or they print more money, then their payments out become less. So it has to happen. But the problem then what happens after that is what we saw also previously, is that people start dumping, or governments or huge institutional investors start dumping their bonds. And when that happens, there's no demand for the bonds, and then the price of those bonds has to go up, because it's just supply and demand. At the end of the day, the whole world works on supply and demand. And if there's less demand for these bonds, there's more supply, then that's also a red flag, and it's very dangerous for the United States. So it all comes back to Bitcoin, my friends. Bitcoin is money. Everything else is credit. Saylor has seen the vision. before everyone, and it makes complete sense. Bitcoin is on its own. Yes, I like these layer ones. Yes, I like these altcoins. Yes, I like Ethereum, but Bitcoin is in a land and in a sea of its own. It's the strongest asset class in my opinion right now. Obviously the only risk around it is if Satoshi, I don't know, wakes up, sells some of his coins, but I don't know if we ever find out about who it is. But yeah, that's why a lot of these people are Bitcoin maxis, is because the value of the dollar is just tanking right now. And Elon Musk posted this as well. The real tax on the American people is what government spends. Because if you're taxing a U.S. citizen, you're taxing these, or any taxpayer, the government uses that to fund everything that they need to do. Their whole budget, their agenda, their everything, the infrastructure, to make life easier for everyone. But if they overspend, then they're gonna have to increase taxes. And I saw a very funny meme about when remember there was the Tea Party, they taxed like 3% on tea, and the whole world went crazy. Now you're talking about like 40% income tax in some places. Like, it's insane. I saw that in London, for example, some folks want to make, if you get to £100,000 salary, by the time you go above that £100,000, it actually, you're worse off. You end up giving like 55% of your income to the government. Well, if you're at £99,000, for example, you're better off because you still have some benefits here and there. So these governments are taking so much of your income. And okay, it'd be great if they were actually doing something like free healthcare or that works, and free education and all these things. But in the United States, like what are you getting out of it? Like it's a question that people are asking, and it's getting worse and worse. So hopefully, I was hoping that Trump would get into it, but looking at his big beautiful bill, I'm starting to get really concerned, and not just me. Obviously, Ray Dalio and the likes are also starting to get really concerned. And I wanted to end a little bit on this exciting note. Obviously, the rift between Elon Musk and Trump has been huge. And what's interesting with Trump is that he managed to get a lot of Democrats to go Republican because they didn't want Kamala Harris. They didn't want Biden. They didn't want the party anymore. They wanted someone like Trump. And Trump happened to realize and figure out that if he turned Republican, because back in the day he actually helped the Democrats, that he could get a huge voting community, and then that he would win. And so now, and I'm hoping this is actually the case, because we've seen like a donkey and an elephant. It's always been two parties as a democracy, but now Elon Musk is playing around with the new idea of this of a new party, and he's calling it the America Party. And if he decides to launch it, they did a quick survey to see if people would be interested. And I think it's time for a new party. I saw Zoran Mamdani in the New York mayor race. He is phenomenal, but he had to go Democrat because he had it's very difficult for you to win as an independent or a third party. But I think it's time, and I'm hoping. I'm not even American. Like, it's fascinating that we have to. If America does well, the world does well, and if America does bad, the world does bad. So I'm rooting for America. I'm rooting for my American friends, and I'm hoping they realize that all of this, their foreign policy, is so expensive for what? Unnecessary. And this time around, I feel like a lot of my expat friends here in the UAE have realized, like, why? No, it's unnecessary. It's expensive for nothing. We talked about how expensive war can be. So, a new America Party, Elon Musk, running for it. Hey, you never say never, right? And if he understands the value of a budget, and he understands the value of a profit and loss, how to run a company. Obviously Tesla was losing a lot of money in the beginning. He figured out how to make it work, albeit with some subsidies from the government, but he figured out how to make it work. So this is bullish for me. If the United States can figure out a way to have a new party with someone like Elon Musk behind it, that'll be an interesting time indeed. And I might get some hate for this in the comments, but it's okay. This is just what I feel, and I'm excited to see how this all plays out, because it's fascinating. And this is why we're doing the lives. Every week we're going to be live with you guys, because things are changing very fast. One day we'll have an America Party. We'll talk about it, talk about the campaign trail, and it's going to be exciting. Okay, we wrap up the show by looking at what's happening with the watch list that we've created. So let's have a look at the watch list that we've created. We'll look at first, I want to go into the 2025 crypto portfolio plan that we made 7 months ago on this channel. So you can go find that. But let's see how it's performing. In the past 90, oh my God, guys. Green. The past week, green. Hyper liquid has been a wow. 250% over the past 3 months. Absolute winner this cycle. Absolute winner. A bunch of Stanford geniuses that created this DeFi, decentralized centralized exchange. Go check it out. It's awesome. Sui, a great layer one that's absolutely crushing it right now. Again, look at this potential upside from all-time high. This is what I like to look at. We're only 2% away from Bitcoin's all-time high. So that's very interesting. I think once we hit that all-time high, we'll start to see some movement here. 47% for Ethereum, still lacking behind. 49% for Solana, and then here, all of these little gems down at the bottom that potentially can do really well once Bitcoin hits its all-time high. So overall, 2025 portfolio plan. If you guys had followed what I said when we made this I think in December of last year, then you would be in a pretty good shape. And these are obviously projects that I've been researching and the team has been researching, and we put a lot of effort and thought into this. How's gaming doing? Gaming used to be the biggest narrative in the last cycle. How's it doing this cycle? Well, to be honest, things are looking a little bit up, but if you look at from all-time high, it's still wow, minus 85%, minus 86, minus 80, minus 95% for immutable. But there is some upside happening now in the past 7 days. But overall, gaming has not been the winner this cycle because it's so expensive to create games. AI, biggest narrative this cycle around. How has it been doing? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 projects that are in the green, 2 in the red. So actually, in the past 90 days, this portfolio would have been doing really well, with FET and Ocean Protocol as the biggest winners. That's really interesting. And then next, Made in the USA was one theme that we thought would be doing really well this cycle. And I was right. I mean, these are all, some of them are obviously overlapping. We have XRP, we have Solana, Sui, Chainlink, Avalanche, FET, and Render, all in the green over the past 90 days. This portfolio absolutely crushed it. This watch list absolutely crushed it. Absolutely fantastic. So there you have it, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe if you haven't already. See you next week. Crypto Code